books by Paul Brunton, especially,
Yes.
I mean, right now we're talking about this book. Is
Yes.
it a self-improvement book or a self-realization book?
Yes.
Which-
Yes, it is. I mean, if you look at the chapters, I mean, the first one is the adventure in meditation. So it starts where you are, like wanting to learn to concentrate, right? So having calmness and concentration. I was struck by one of your interviews. I saw you have Ganesha in your house, right?
Yeah, we do. It's a huge
Yeah,
one.
beautiful
Let me
Ganesha.
move it. It's right here. Over
Yes,
there.
yes, right. And so Ganesha removes obstacles, right? And there's a mantra, I think it's something like Om Gam Ganapataye
Okay,
Namaha,
yeah.
Nama, right? Which supposedly is to help us achieve calm concentration, right? Because this is one of the tools that will serve us in all aspects of life, right? So the first chapter is the adventure in meditation, and it goes through the 3 stages of meditation. So the last stage is more like the mystic realization. But then there's some other interesting chapters. There's the soul and the heart was one of them, and one about the interior word, where after your meditation develops to a certain extent where you're able to remain in the silence, there's this phenomenon that occurs for some people of an inner speaking, like with the higher self. It's not a psychic thing. It's not a UFO thing. It's not it's not another being, like you, another individual. It's not like that. It's more like something from the higher self speaking directly to the lower, in a way, lower self. But the following chapters are cleansing the emotions, the ethical qualifications of the seeker, the surrender of the ego, and the probations and tests of the aspirant. Those 4 chapters I consider kind of like spiritual Pilates, exercise that strengthen your core.
Yeah.
This is self-improvement. I mean, this is a part of the book that really focuses on self-improvement, because it's the effort that we have to make to align our emotional, mental life with the higher ideals, right? So that's long path work. You mentioned long path, short path. That is long path work, but it's building the foundation so that the overself, the higher self, can actually have, so that it can actually become the what I was saying before, the ability for the overself to reveal itself, to manifest itself through your personal characteristics. So it can't do that in a mind that's full of negativity, greed, power hungry, ambitious just to be ambitious, to improve, my ranking in society, or I want to look better than so and so, or all of these kind of energies are counter the kind of quality that the higher self represents. I mean, it's like putting a round peg in a square hole. It's just not going to work. So maybe that's not the best analogy. It's like, it just, but what one has to understand is that it's the higher self, actually, your inner intelligence is that over self working in you. And that's why PB has this chapter. He talks about it earlier, but called the working of grace. And grace is basically a code word for how the higher self, from the beginning, from the time you were an amoeba, or just the beginning of an embodied kind of life, how it guided you all along the way, even the tragedies, the suffering, the missteps, because that's how we learn our lessons. All the things we get wrong are, we're greedy until we understand that it's really only we become wealthy when we can give to others. The kind of opposites of some of these things, or we're really loved when we're loving to everyone, That's when we can really, it's this transformation of the personality is what PB talks about in those core chapters I'm calling the spiritual Pilates of the book. Yes, so if you're on the short path, PB recommended doing the two together, but the short path kind of rejects all that, because what the short path is trying to do is say, look, the divine is already present in you, here and now. It's there. You cannot become more real than you already are. You already are this higher self. But what even some doctrines fail to point out, the difference is you don't actually know it. You don't live it. You live as if I'm the separate person.
Right.
So the short path is to point you at that reality, and maybe you get a glimpse. Maybe, that subtitle of that book is Instructions for Immediate Awakening, something like that, immediate spiritual awakening. But those are important, incomparably important steps in one's life when you get a glimpse of something beyond the person. Okay. But then you got to do the long path to make it actual in your life 24 hours a day. This isn't about glimpsing reality and saying, I'm realized, I'm an awakened being because I had a taste of the divine. That doesn't, you lost it. You had it, you lost it. The fact that it's gone, it disqualifies you from sagehood, as it were. You're not done. You've been given the road, you've been given a taste of where you need to go. Like PB had those early awakenings when he was 16. It gave him a taste of a goal. But then he had to say, well, what is this? And how do you call it empowerment.
Right, I do.
Yeah, empowerment is when you're shown a new path. Like in Tibetan Buddhism, you go to a Tibetan teacher, you get an empowerment. They do a certain ritual that introduces you to a certain quality of the Buddha nature, a certain, aspect of Buddhahood. And it gives you permission to practice. Why? Well, you've been introduced. So any kind of glimpse, or maybe a book that opens you up, or a new direction that comes, in a way, it's coming to you from the overself as grace to take you to the next step. You follow what I'm saying? So that's right. That's giving you grace. It's giving you a taste of something. Yeah.